Hello, MGTOW. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, firstly, let me apologize for my last Patreon video. I may have gone a little bit too far. Uh, not so much in my thoughts, but in the way I express them. Uh, I suppose I suppose a man could say the same thing and then, say it one way in a very effeminate, lispy-like voice, and it would be like, oh, well, that's acceptable. And then he could say the same thing, but in an angry, direct, confrontational voice. And I believe that, it could really set people off. So how you say things, it matters. You kind of want to say things in the manner that is appropriate for your audience, right? So just something to keep in mind. But here's the thing. I need to make a few of these videos to express how I really feel about the crackdown on free speech on social media platforms like YouTube, like what happened to me. Otherwise, I'll just end up keeping it all bottled up inside. So I hope you will forgive me and bear with me as I make a few of these videos for Patreon only concerning this. Now, here's the thing. This is all based on the premise that MGTOW is hate speech. MGTOW is not hate speech. There's a lot of men who come into MGTOW, who are initially attracted to MGTOW that are full of hate and rage and anger. And in many instances, it's completely justified. And it's not like, oh, because women are so bad, whatever, don't care about the women too much. But because the man has deluded himself. You know what I mean? He's fallen so far into a trap of altruism and sacrifice, and he'll do anything for her and the family. And these are noble, worthy emotions, okay? But they are not reciprocated, right? So the man feels like a fool. And, that's one of the most horrible feelings in the world, isn't it? And it just makes you so bitter and so angry. And it's understandable, right? Like, yeah, this is how men feel. And rightly so. But to, interpret MGTOW in that vein, it's foolish. I mean, this would be like punishing people for crying out when they stub their toe. This would be like punishing a dog because it barked. This is punishing man because he is a thinking, moral, rational, ethical being. Like, everything needs to line up. Or, the good man, he'll be like, well, there's these huge inconsistencies here. There's, I can't reconcile these things. And it drives people insane. This is why people in communist leftist countries, they go insane, right? Like the entire population, has to praise the glorious leader. It's like, oh, or the glorious social justice warrior principles of diversity and inclusiveness and equality and egalitarianism. But inside, they don't really feel that way. Because it doesn't work. It's bullshit. Like the glorious leader is starving millions of people, right, for his crazy ideas, for these crazy socialistic ideas, collectivized ideas. But nobody can say anything. So the population is walking around in this duplicitous state where they say, oh, it's the birthday of the glorious leader. We are all celebrating. And aren't we oh so lucky to have the glorious leader? But inside they're saying, I'm starving. I'm working 18 hours a day and I'm not getting paid but $5 a day. And I can't sustain myself. I can't live. I wish it wasn't like this. I hate the glorious leader. The glorious leader stinks. I wish he would die. And that we could have freedom and go back to how things were. So that's what they think and feel inside. But, outside they have to say, oh, it's a celebration and we all love the glorious leader. And you can see this in places, like North Korea. All the people standing up there crying and weeping for hours over the death of the glorious leader. And, none of them can stop because the first one to stop crying is going to get punished and sent, to a camp. Even a situation where the men are required to take the knee and bow down to, an authority that's just not worthy of their respect. It causes a schism, a fracture within the man, and creates this horrible resentment, this conforming to this false narrative. And the strong and the capable and the noble and the virtuous, they won't do it. They recognize what it is. It's a means of social control. And it's constant. It's throughout all of history. It's throughout all of systems of control and things like that. And control is what people and power is after. So now let's talk about how YouTube treats people, how social media treats people that go against their narrative, their worldview. I'll tell you this, what's happening now today is a setup for what's going to happen in 2 years from now with the 2020 elections, American elections. This is also related to the Global Compact on Immigration, where it's essentially spelled out that the countries are now required to go along with this immigration policy of flooding Western civilization with African and Middle Eastern immigration. And they are required to promote these ideals, and they are required to punish and prohibit anyone who speaks out against these ideas. You could easily suggest that all of our institutions have been bought by Middle Eastern Muslim interests, money, oil money, and that now they are setting the agenda against the people of Western civilization, such that they are required to destroy, denigrate, demean, belittle their own culture, and to replace themselves with people who do not share their values and hold them in great contempt and hatred, and will destroy them, and will burn down their civilization merely to burn it down. Understand that the leftist has no plan for the future. It's like, so they lie, they get you fired, and then you're like, okay, that was a really dirty, ugly, underhanded, base human thing, rotten human thing to do. What are you going to do now? And the answer is, I don't know. I just wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to hurt the virtuous and the noble and the hardworking. I just can't see them take control. And you can understand why that's the easier way to go. Like, a lot of people are going to go down that road. And a lot of people, they're going to shy away from a road of individual productivity and accomplishment and achievement and being alone. A lot of people are going to not go down that road. So these are, this is at the basis of the arguments that we're having and the conflicts that we're having. Now we throw into the mix Howard Dare, social media, me creating, a public voice to express things. Why would I bother to express that the weather is fine? It's the weather's good today. That's not news to me. There's nothing there. Puppies are cute. Flowers smell pretty. Appreciate them while they're pretty, because it doesn't last long. Nothing wrong with that. Puppies are cute, okay? But then they turn into big, dirty dogs that, mess up your yard and things like that. I like dogs, though. I like animals, right? It's men who husbandry animals, right? Who take care of the animals. It's like, we need more female veterinarians. Women don't even like to take care of animals. So, they don't feel that compassion. I remember I was living with a single mother, right? I'd let her move in. This was many years ago. This was when I was learning the ways of MGTOW. And the relationship wasn't working out, right? Of course, because she didn't care about me at all. She just cared about, using me. And I wasn't, playing along. I was, losing my enthusiasm. And she decided to get a dog with the idea that it would, bind us together as more of a family unit. And we got it, she got it from the pound. It was a border collie. And he was sick. He got sick. He was depressed. And he was just laying there. And I could see that he wasn't going to make it, right? And it wasn't that he was, so unhealthy or injured or anything like that. He just, lost his spirit and also was probably sick. And she and her son paid no attention to that animal. They just, if he wasn't going to play, if he wasn't going to run and jump and to do what they wanted him to do, they didn't care about him. But it broke my heart, because originally I didn't even want, a dog. And I could tell he was just brokenhearted and lonely. I mean, it wasn't hard to figure out, you know what I mean? He was listless. He had no energy. And so with my spare time, before I went to work, when I came home from work, I would just sit with the dog, and I would just, I would just rest my hand on him and, make sure he had what he needed. And I would just sit there with him. That's all. Like I wasn't going to go watch TV or read a book. I'll sit there with the, suffering animal. And as soon as the dog realized that someone genuinely cared about him, you know what I mean? That it wasn't just, oh, here's your water, here's our food, because he'd been in the pound. And I think he was suffering, from parvo, but it was deeper. So as soon as he, as soon as we could create a bond, as soon as he was like, oh, I know that person's smell, they're nice to me, I like their company, it's pleasant to me, I wonder if they're going to come back around, I hope they come back around, just basic kind of interaction with people, the dog got better, right? He was a lifelong great dog, many, many years, no problems, lots of energy, most intelligent dog I'd ever had. When I was breaking up with the single mother, right? She's leaving, right? She's storming out. And she's like, I'm taking the dog. And I'm like, no, you're not. I would not, because I remembered that she didn't care about the dog at all. To her, the dog was just, anyway. So, yeah, interesting story. So, what I wanted to say about the whole YouTube situation, I pretty much make a little bit more than I need to get by between YouTube and some other sources of income, okay? So I'm able to pay my rent and I'm able to pay my bills, or I was. And sometimes, if I'm smart and careful, have a few $100s left over in the month. And that allows me to save up a little bit, buy a used car after a year or two. And that's what I was doing. But on December, in the month of December, YouTube does really well because all the advertisers are expelling their budget. They have to get rid of their budget, right? Because if they don't spend it, then their budget gets cut for next year in advertising. So they're really putting it out there. And it's, Christmas season and things like that. I mean, it literally drops off after Christmas, so it did for me. Like it wasn't the whole month. And in that 1 month, I can make 2, 3, even 4 times as much as I would make in a normal month. So, I'm able to make 3, 4 times what I would usually make. But then they cut all of my videos off. And all of the, MGTOW content creators, people who really use the MGTOW tag. But not necessarily just MGTOW content creators. A lot of people make MGTOW videos and YouTube didn't do anything to them. So 3 years of work, investing in building up the channel, boom, down the drain, no explanation, no warning, no nothing. And when I tried to talk to them about it, they were annoyed. You know what I mean? They were like, we have the right. We classify this as hate speech. And it's like, well, that's interesting because a week before you didn't. So, that's kind of what happened, And what I want to say is that they reversed themselves. They're not a free speech platform. They are a leftist, advertiser-friendly ideological platform. And that's fine, whatever. But they presented themselves as, an open platform. And I took them at their word. So now what you're looking at is somebody who openly goes against their own word. And I don't mean like breaks their word accidentally. Like let's say you've got a boss and the boss says, always pay your bills on time, no excuses. And he's a good boss and you like him and, you even like model some of your behavior after him because he's successful. And then he comes to you one week and he says, I can't pay you this week. I've got a problem with payroll. We're working it out. Give me a few more days. And you're like, but you said that you always have to pay your bills on time. You're a liar. You have no honor or integrity. I hate you. Okay. That's different. He didn't mean to do it. He probably could have worked harder and done other things to avoid it, but he didn't openly and purposely set out to do just that. And things do happen. Banks fail, stuff like that. All kinds of interesting things. But what if he's doing it on purpose? And you say to him, okay, why are you not paying these bills? And he says, because I don't like this person, because I don't agree with this person. What is he doing now? What is he now? Right? Is he a person of honor and integrity trying to live up to that and coming up short based on, the situation, and he feels shame and he wants to, do something about it, what is he? If he's willingly breaking his own rules, if he's saying, oh, yes, this is an open speech platform, but you people over here who, have conservative views, no, not for you. And you can't, get any of the advertisement here. It's all going to go to leftist, collectivized views or content. What is he now? Is he a hypocrite? Is he a man without honor or integrity? Is he just a liar? He could cause a lot of damage, couldn't he? Right? Like he could get people to think that he was, honorable and open, and then he could get people to come work for him, and then he could not pay them. I wonder if that sounds familiar, because that's what YouTube did, right? They got people to come and create content, and then they didn't pay them as they said they would. Are they allowed to legally do that? Sure, yeah, no doubt. Could they justify it, and say, oh, well, these are our advertisers, and we don't want to risk with it? Sure, they could do that too. And that might even be true. You know what I mean? There might even be some validity to that point. I have zero respect for people who openly break their own word and then, gloat about it. Human beings have an unlimited capacity for self-delusion, okay? So you could never prepare to play baseball your whole life. You could then walk up, to home plate with a bat, and you could strike out because you've never prepared. And then you could say, they cheated me. They cheated me. Those were all balls, and the umpire called them as strikes. You have unlimited capacity for self-delusion. But I won't train someone. I won't try to help someone who's a liar, even unto themselves. So if you say we're an open speech platform, we don't discriminate, based on political views and ideology. We have limits there are some limits on speech because of, certain legal ramifications. But otherwise, no. Say what you want as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're not doing anything illegal. But then what if they say, oh, you said something positive about Trump? We have to disallow that. And then what if they say, oh, you said something positive about immigration? We're going to promote that. So if I take the exact same video that Jimmy Kimmel puts out, like if I take a video of Jimmy Kimmel trash talking Trump, they'll say it's unsuitable on my channel, but they'll call it #1 trending on the Jimmy Kimmel channel. So there's no fairness in the application of what they're doing. They are specifically going against their own ideals and virtues and values. And they're mocking, they're like, ha, we are entitled. It is within our rights. Right? Like slaveholders pass laws that say it's legal to be a slaveholder. Is it? Is it moral? Is it ethical? Is it right? What's going to happen to the slave owner eventually? And so, what this means is you can't invest your time, your resources. Don't develop on rented land, okay? So I develop a YouTube channel and, a subscriber base based on, particular types of videos, and then YouTube says, oh, that doesn't agree with us politically and ideologically, so we're going to call it hate speech. And don't think that I'm just talking about Howard Dare and this, YouTube MGTOW channel. This is what's happening politically within our system. And it's getting worse. The left is completely emboldened, even though their arguments have no merit. And it's becoming more and more obvious. I mean, we're looking at the next 2 years here in America and, largely worldwide media of pointless investigations and committees and bodies, impeachment trials and public demonstrations, the likes of which we have never seen coming from the left. They're still talking about Russian collusion. You know what I mean? Like they talk about this Robert Mueller guy as a Marine who, does a job. He doesn't do a job. He's going to string this thing out as long as he can for whatever political hay he can make about it. So, I'd call him a political hack, but to be honest with you, that would be an insult to political hacks, right? Because this is just something, even smaller and, more ugly. Again, this is personal bias masquerading as virtue. And it goes even deeper than that because it's an egocentric worldview. It's the projection of the narcissist. It really is. It's someone with such a limited worldview that they have to always be right about everything, and you can't disagree with them, and anybody who does is evil. It's the view of a 12-year-old retarded child. It really is, projected throughout all of life. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. It's not a conversation. It's an attempt at public humiliation because you've disagreed with me, even though I haven't even read a single book on the subject, And to question my views on the subject is a personal attack, and Marshall will invoke all of my, political forces and social and economic forces. So the most easily offended among us, the stupidest, the lowest, the least tolerant, okay, is flagging all of our videos and is using the full force of what is conceived of as an open and just, fair system. It's the ultimate betrayal and perversion of our ideals and virtue. It is literally crucifying us and punishing us for our virtue. So you build a home, okay, and then and it's a beautiful home, and there's food, and there's safety, and there's walls, and there's security, and you say, and if anybody has a problem here in this home, they can register, this complaint, and we'll take it seriously. And after you're done building the home and setting up all these rules, a bunch of people who were not invited move in, and they say, according to your rules, we have a serious problem with you and the way that you like the blue sky, the way that you like this, particular type of music. We think it's hateful, and we're throwing you out, and people like you are not welcome here in our home. So it's the ultimate betrayal, for your virtue, and you're going to go along with it. We're all going to go along with it. So it's the least competent, the least worthy, the least virtuous, coming into a system predicated upon those principles, and then using those principles to destroy the people who embody those principles. That's what's going on, right? Justin Trudeau saves the world. Hillary Clinton saves the world. Hillary Clinton, most admired woman in the world. Why? Simply for their self-love, simply for their narcissism, not for their accomplishments, not for their virtue, for their false virtue, for, signaling to the group that they have this virtue that to them is just a means to an end. If they had that virtue, it would express itself. It would not be, a talking point. It would be, and the economy is doing better. It would be the result, not the talking point. Anyway, so the social justice warrior has no honor, has no integrity. They don't really have the principles and the values and the ideals which they claim sustain them and motivate them. They're using them as a weapon to control the winners and the losers, who makes money, who doesn't. Wow, that Jimmy Kimmel sure is funny. He's not. He's a tool. He's an oaf. He's a dribbling insult to masculinity, standing up there and crying over making, you know what I mean? It's like, and can you cry on cue? Can you demonstrate emotions, that you may or may not have? It's like, yes, I can. And can we use that to, manipulate and lead millions of people in absurd, directions? Like, well, that's my job. That's what I do for a living. I'm channeling Jimmy Kimmel right now. What a price, huh? What a price for fame that is. My God. Yeah, don't cry in public, guys. Don't do that, okay? Just a little bit of advice there. I know you've seen it in the movies, right? And I know women and sometimes even, other men have told you it's okay. Don't do it. The truth is a great threat to them. The media is controlled by large moneyed interests, banks, insurance companies, financial institutions. They control the governments. The local politicians are, for the most part, sellouts. And their own ideals and principles, that they sometimes take from the culture, sometimes take from the group, are being used to control them and manipulate them, and their own greed. And I would not be surprised if you're looking at a lot of Arab oil money coming into, those institutions, and therefore this, these ideas of mass immigration, anti-Westernism, anti-native male population, and pro-immigrant male population, which is completely absurd, right? Like, what the hell? You're going to bring in, well, anyway, I suppose, that's another It's actually related, okay? Because what we're looking at is the global compact on immigration being carried out on an ideological basis in social media, even though we as, America have rejected it. It's disgusting. It is to say that you don't have sovereignty over yourself, which is, their goal. They want control. And this is just one of the means to do it. It's the same thing with global warming, which may or may not be true. I don't know. I mean, I suppose that man does have some effect, right? But who knows if it's, enough of anything. But then using that idea to control the populations. That's what's going on there. A carbon tax, right? You're gonna charge me a carbon tax, but you're gonna let Leonardo DiCaprio fly around the world in a private jet. Come on. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about holding the Howard Dare channel to one set of standards and Jimmy Kimmel to a completely different set of standards. As I said, right? Look, I'll do it. I'll take a clip from Jimmy Kimmel and, I'll just maybe say, this is an interesting clip from Jimmy Kimmel. Kind of illustrates, current social views. Let's have a look at it. I won't really change the context of anything, and we'll see. I mean, I don't even need to do it because I've already done things like that. So, right, that's unsuitable to most advertisers. And it's like, no, this is the most suitable clip that you have for your advertisers. So what does that tell you? You want to create extenuating circumstances to forgive it? I know I usually do. And I blame Immanuel Kant for that. I really do. This idea that if you can find a single exception to, something that is, for the most part, true, that it's untrue. And it's like, well, absolute logic and reason may fail you at some point. And it's like, yes, well, we do have limited knowledge. And it's like, well, therefore, it's not really what's going on here. Which is false, which is incorrect. It is an argument for, that's an argument for mysticism and spiritualism and top-down state control, masquerading as, a logical argument. Damn, that's, it's so underhanded. It really is. It's like, it's kind of like what we're experiencing, isn't it? It's like if I disagree with immigration, if I disagree with diversity, if I disagree with affirmative action and a welfare state, I was like, well, let's call that hate speech. So it's, using the principles of free speech against free speech. It's a real ugly thing to do. Completely unworthy of, respect or honor. Honestly, it's like a man saying one thing and then doing another thing on purpose. So he's not even true to himself. Do you see? So even if he benefits, even if these people benefit by these types of actions, and they do, in the long run, they don't. It's, a betrayal of the self and of sustainable principles. And that's a very detached way of putting it, It sucks dealing with cheaters. It sucks going on to the game field, playing your game, and then being punished for, doing good. It really does. It stinks. It's like, competing against the boss's son, and he sucks, but you got to let him win, right? And not just you've got to let him win, but at the end of the day, they're not allowed to pay you, right? So they're going to take your measly little working man's salary, of a couple $1,000, and they're going to give it to the son of a politician who's got millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're going to take what you need to eat and live that you've earned as a man. And under the guise of that's hate speech, because they don't agree with it politically, and they're going to give it to someone like Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not kidding. That is exactly what's going on here. The men are suffering. The men hear about MGTOW. They come into social media. They say, what is MGTOW? And they find, the main MGTOW content creators, and they watch and they say, I'm not alone. There is hope. I can restore. I can reclaim, my dignity, my self-worth. I made a mistake. I gave myself over to a gynocentric female worshiping world. And then after that, the algorithm sends them over to a Jimmy Kimmel video. And after that, the video that brought them here onto YouTube makes no profit, nothing, $1. But the Jimmy Kimmel video makes more monies. So it's disgusting. You know what I mean? It's a crooked referee. It's a league of sports teams that it's controlled by the betting industry. It's Dostoevsky's corrupt civil servants just punishing people who come into contact with them. Like, oh, I'm going to kill his platform. Oh, I'm going to promote that platform. And as I said, it's being dictated to from a much larger moneyed interest. So this is what we're up against. They'll destroy your life. They'll take everything. They'll falsely accuse you. They'll get you put in jail. That's what they're doing to the men. And they're doing it with the system that the men of Western civilization put into place. So, it's a double insult. It's a triple insult. And it works, right? Like, it's unprincipled. And, like we say to ourselves, oh, well, no, they'll be destroyed in the end. Yes, no doubt, perhaps. But meanwhile, so will you, and everything you've worked for, and everything you hoped for, and everything that could have been will be lost so that they can indulge their retarded narcissism. Because they don't like it when people disagree with them, but their own views they're not, they are the unexamined views. The unexamined view is not worth having. So if you're just adopting the view of the people around you and you haven't thought it out and understood why it's a valid, position to have, it's not worth having. And this is, of course, the unexamined life is not worth living. This is Aristotle. So the unexamined ideal and principle, value, is not worth having. It's just group conformity. So the people who are examining their views and have their views are being punished by the people who have this group collective view, which is being dictated to them by this much larger moneyed interest, this much larger political class, this much larger media, which is controlled by the other two groups. That's the situation. If you can create open immigration, you'll never be able to turn it around, because they will always have a majority of people that will always vote for a collectivized, centralized control, not individual opportunity. And so, the strong men, the strong women, there's no place for them. They are, unwelcome. So don't simply adopt the views of the group around you. Examine them. I know that here, look, the pattern is this, okay, is that you're brought up, and the more that you go along with the rules in the group, the better you do. But it turns out that there are some inherent conflicts and flaws within these ideals. In other words, for the men, it's all about sacrifice, okay? And you can only sacrifice so much before you're dead. And why would you sacrifice to a system that doesn't value you or your sacrifice? So this is the truth that men are facing. And the women are like, oh, you hate women. It's like, this isn't about women. I mean, the women are the bait that the system uses. Women are loyal to the state, but it's the state who built and paid and was paid for by men. But the men don't control it. Larger moneyed interests, political class, media controls it. It's overbearing, okay? The men can't get ahead. They can't build a life for themselves. This is why they're revolting in Paris. And you want to put, global warming taxes on them? Jeez. They're working men who just want to get enough to live till the next day. Hey, you want to know how to control a horse and get him to do whatever you want him to do? A horse is a big, powerful thing, okay? It can just walk away from a man. Why would a horse do what a man wants him to do? You want to know how to get a horse to do what you want it to do? Feed it just enough to get him by to the next day. That's all. And you want to know how to get a man to do what you want him to do? Pay him just enough to get by to the next day, to the next week, to the next month, okay? That's how you get a man to do what you want him to do. That's how you get a man to stand up and tell jokes like Jimmy Kimmel, betraying the suffering of the men around him while he plays to the crowd to be popular and rich and famous. And you take, the little bit that the working man has, and you give it to Jimmy Kimmel. And everybody knows, holy shit. If you speak out, if you tell the truth, they're going to take what you need to live, and they're going to give it to some jackass like Jimmy Kimmel, who tells jokes making fun of men and crying on stage. Disgusting. Right? And the other men look at that and they're like, hey, I guess a real man does cry in public. Don't do it. All right. These are just some of my feelings. This can never be a public video on YouTube, right? So it's just for my Patreon, subscribers. And I don't know I don't know how we're going to get through this. I mean, we're going to get, individually, we're going to get stronger, okay? But not all of us, not all the time. Especially, when it's happening to the younger men. So the need for MGTOW is real. The idea that MGTOW and feminism are, the same, check my previous video. Nothing could be further from the truth. They're actually the exact opposites. Women want more laws, rules, and regulations to lift themselves up and to knock the men down, and the men want fewer rules and regulations. They want to take what they've earned and go their own way because they don't think they're being treated fairly. This is the moral and ethical step to take. Like if you're working for a place and they're not paying you, you quit and you stop working for them and you go work for yourself. Find something else. I know it's not easy, but that's what you do. You go your own way. So the idea, that you're not even allowed to go your own way. This actually happens in Atlas Shrugged as well. Towards the end, it becomes illegal for anybody to quit their job or to change their position. The government makes the rule because the economy is falling apart and the industries are just falling apart. So it's like, no, anybody who's, in the sanitation business, you have to stay in the sanitation business. You can't quit. You can't do anything. So, it becomes a rule, a law. The great philosophers, they saw what was coming. They saw the moral, the ethical, the economic crises that, were facing us, that we were going to have to confront. So study them. But understand, not all of them are defenders of, logic and rationality. So many of them are tools of the state. Many of them are like Jimmy Kimmel, okay? They're not telling you the truth. They're not trying to help you. They're not trying to make you laugh. They're trying to pass on state propaganda so that they can have the approval of the state so that they can be prosperous. But they're unexamined views. They're put forth like, this is the moral way to go forward, but they're not. They're the views of the group put forward as if they're valid views because that will win that individual approval from that group. But they are not examined views that this person has thought out on all sides. And again, the unexamined view is not worth having. And I can tell when I'm, in a conversation or a debate or an argument with somebody, whether or not they actually believe what they say they believe, or if they're just telling me something that they believe that the group thinks is true. I have only encountered a handful of women in my life that were able to, have a particular view and then present that particular view. All of them have been, these are the views of the group. These are the views of the state. These are the groups that everybody else goes along with. You're an idiot for not going along with them. And it's like, well, when you play them out, especially for a man, they don't work. In any case, I'm going to leave it at that for now. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate, and join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, MGTOW.